For this video, we're going to continue to go over some basic exponent rules and get ready for your quiz in the next class. So for our first example, I've got 2v squared times 2v squared. Alright, so for me, I see that these parentheses are the first thing that I need to get rid of. Remember, if you have something on the outside of parentheses, it needs to go to everything inside. So this becomes 2 squared v squared times 2v squared. Alright, 2 squared is 4. Then I can multiply my coefficients to get 8. And v squared times v squared, I add to get 8v to the 4th. Okay, keep in mind, your coefficient is in its own different world. It does not have the same exponent rules as we do when we have our variables and exponents. This is 2 to the first power, so I still multiply, but 1 times 2 is 2, so now I have to do 2 squared to get my next number, my next coefficient. For our second example, I have x over the quantity 2x to the 0 power squared. Anytime you have x to the 0 power, that becomes 1, so it kind of just goes away. Only x is raised to the 0 power, so x is the only thing that I can get rid of. So now I can rewrite this as x over 2 squared, which becomes x over 4. Now I have x to the 4th power to the negative 3rd power times 2x to the negative 4, or to the positive 4, excuse me. There are different ways that you can do this. I'm going to go ahead and distribute or multiply my 4 and negative 3, but you could go ahead and get rid of the negative by making this a fraction. Either way works. So if I multiply, I get x to the negative 12 times 2x to the 4th. My coefficient out here is a 1. 1 times 2 is 2. I have two separate bases, so I'm going to add my exponents. Negative 12 plus 4 is negative 8. I don't want any negative exponents, so that's the only thing I need to move. The 2 is fine. It has a positive exponent. So then this is going to become 2 over x to the 8th. Only move the base that has a negative exponent. Now I have 2y cubed times 3xy cubed over 3x squared y to the 4th. Again, several different options you have in whenever you start this problem. I'm going to go ahead and simplify the top and then combine the top and the bottom. So I have 2 and 3. 2 times 3 is 6. I have an x by itself, so I'm just going to rewrite the x. And then I have a y cubed and a y cubed. That's going to become y to the 6th. All over 3x squared y to the 4th. Right? I'm going to look at my coefficients again. I have 6 over 3. 6 divided by 3 is 2. Then I subtract. This is a 1. So x to the first over x squared. 1 minus 2 is negative 1. And then 6 minus 4 is 2. Again, no negative exponents. The only one that needs to move is the x. So I end up with 2y squared over x to the first power, and you don't have to write the 1. So it's just 2y squared over x. Now I have x to the 4th, y cubed, times the quantity 2y squared raised to the 0 power. Well, anything raised to the 0 power becomes 1, so this entire quantity becomes 1. And it kind of goes away because anything times 1 is itself. Then I'm left with x to the 4th, y cubed. I cannot combine those, so I'm just going to rewrite those as my answer. Then I have x to the negative 3 to the 4th times x to the 4th all over 2x to the negative 3. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of the parentheses. So x to the negative 3rd raised to the 4th becomes x to the negative 12 times x to the 4th over 2x to the negative 3. I'm going to go ahead and combine the top. So negative 12 plus 4 is negative 8. And then I'm going to combine my x's. This is a 1 up here, and I can't simplify 1 over 2, so I'm going to have a 2 in the denominator in my final answer. If I subtract, I get negative 8 minus a negative 3. If I subtract a negative, I'm really adding. So I have negative 8 plus 3, which gives me negative 5. So I have x to the negative 5th over that same 2. Whatever has the negative, I'm going to flip, and it's going to go to the bottom. When I flip it to the bottom, there's nothing left up there except for my coefficient. positive 1. And then on the bottom, I have 2x to the 5th. Alright, now I've got the quantity 2x cubed z squared, all cubed, all over x cubed y to the 4th z squared times x to the negative 4th z cubed. I'm going to get rid of the parentheses. Again, you've got several different orders you can take. So that 3 is going to go to everything. Remember, this becomes 2 cubed. So 2 times 2 times 2 is 8. And then x cubed cubed becomes x to the 9th. Z squared cubed becomes z to the 6th. We multiply. Okay, I'm going to go and simplify the bottom too while I'm here. I can combine my x's, x cubed and x to the negative 4, add them. 3 and negative 4 gives me negative 1. I only have one y down here, so I have y to the 4th. And then 2 and 3 give me 5. Alright, not quite done. I need to subtract. The 8 has nothing to go with it, so it's going to stay in my final answer. I have a 9 and a negative 1. So 9 minus negative 1 is 9 plus 1, so I get 10. So I have 8x to the 10th. 6 minus 5 is 1, so I have z all over y to the 4th. No negatives, everything's simplified, so that's my answer. And the last one, I have 2pm to the negative 1 q to the 0, all to the negative 4th, times 2m to the negative 1st p cubed, all over 2pq squared. Okay, it looks like a lot, but let's just start with what's easiest. I see a 0. That tells me that q to the 0 cancels out, right? It's just 1. I'm going to get rid of the parentheses. I like to get rid of those first. So this is going to go to everything in my parentheses. Alright, so then I'm going to get 2 to the negative 4th, which I can't simplify yet. P to the negative 4, and then m to the positive 4, and then 2m to the negative 1 p cubed, all over 2pq squared. Alright, from here, just as something different, you don't have to do this next, but I see that I have a 2 on the top and on the bottom. That tells me that they cancel. Alright, so I can go and get rid of those. Now I just have this 2 to the negative 4 that we can take care of in a few minutes. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and combine what's on top. So I'm going to leave that 2 to the negative 4. Now I got a negative 4 plus 3. It's going to give me a negative 1. I have a positive 4 and a negative 1. It's going to give me a 3. And then on the bottom, I'm down to pq squared. I'm going to subtract. The only thing I need to subtract are the p's, because I don't have any m's or q's on top and bottom. So negative 1 minus 1 gives me a negative 2. So now the top looks like 2 to the negative 4 times p to the negative 2 times m cubed all over q squared. Right, whatever has a negative needs to switch. So this 2 has to go, and the p has to go. The m's going to stay up there. So I'm going to have m cubed on top. Now I have 2 to the positive 4, p to the positive 2, and then the same q squared. Now I can go one step farther and go ahead and simplify 2 to the 4th. So that's 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, which is 16. So I have m cubed over 16 p squared q squared. Again, there's so many different routes you can take. Whatever comes to mind first, go with it. Just make sure you use the correct rules throughout the entire problem. Make sure that you have only one variable left, right? You don't want two different m's. You only want one m. And make sure you simplify your coefficients. Okay, they need to be simplified just as much as all of your exponents do.